Good evening, everyone, to the Bernalillo County Administrative Meeting of September 27th, 2016. We will start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Margarita Chavez. Thank you. Madam County Manager, any changes or additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, there's only one change, and that is just only to move item 3A. It's Bernalillo County Comprehensive Plan Update to 13B under discussion.
Thank you. Do you need to take a vote on that?
No.
Moving on to item 4, proclamations. We have Fire Prevention Week. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jalea, thank you for coming. Chief Gober. Appreciate having you all here today. And we have Fire Prevention Week every week, so or every year, not every week. That would be kind of We have Fire Prevention Week every day. It's been a long week this month, something like that. So I'll just jump in here and read this. And this is sponsored by Chair Art Dela Cruz, Vice Chair Wayne Johnson, Commissioner Debbie O'Malley, and Commissioner Maggie Hart-Stebbins, and Commissioner Lonnie C. Talbert. The County of Bernalillo is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our county, and fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas, according to the National Fire Protection Association, U.S. fire departments responded to 494,000 home fires in 2015, and the Bernalillo County Fire Department responded to 92 residential structure fires, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,860 people in the United States in 2015, including one in Bernalillo County, 27 in New Mexico, whereas residential fires cost in excess of $14.3 billion in property damage, including $1.03 million in Bernalillo County, and whereas in 1/5 of all homes with smoke alarms, the smoke alarms are not working, and whereas 3 out of 5 home fire deaths result from fires in properties without working smoke alarms or with no working smoke alarms, and whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires by over 50%, and automatic fire sprinkler systems cut the risk of dying in a home fire by approximately 80%, and whereas many Americans don't know the age of the smoke alarms in their homes or the frequency that they should be replaced, and whereas Bernalillo County first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention, protection, and education, and whereas the 2016 Fire Prevention Week theme, Don't Wait, Check the Date, Replace Smoke Alarms Every 10 Years, effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of replacing the smoke alarm at least every 10 years, to determine the age of their smoke alarms by checking the date of manufacture on the back of the alarms. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners proclaims that October 9th through 15th, 2016 is Fire Prevention Week, and urges all people of Bernalillo County to protect their homes and families by heeding the important safety messages of Fire Prevention Week 2016, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Bernalillo County Fire Department. Done this 27th day of September 2016 in Bernalillo County, State of New Mexico. All commissioners have signed. And gentlemen, I just learned something by reading my own proclamation, and I'm going to go home and change my smoke detectors, probably tonight. Well, okay, maybe not tonight, but very, very near, in a very short order, we'll put it that way. Chief?
Chris Alaya, Fire Chief. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. Once again, Fire Prevention Week is our reminder every year of the importance of fire safety. The United States remains, as a country, the country with the highest fatalities and injuries in any industrialized country. So the importance of fire prevention, fire safety remains, and this is our opportunity to get that message out. Certainly we try to do that every single day in everything that we do, but nationally we certainly push this across the United States to remind everyone. This year's does fall in line with what we've been doing. The National Fire Protection Agency has continued to push on their third year smoke detectors. This year's, of course, is the 10-year. I'm glad you've picked it up, and that's what the hope is that as we push this forward, people start to realize there's other things that every year we continue to push, and hopefully they'll learn something new. This does go in line with our continued effort to get smoke detector out to residents in Bernalillo County. It was a week ago today that we had a fire in the South Valley. I was very pleased to hear, as I read the report, that the residents were alerted by a smoke detector. That is the effort that we are trying to do for every single fire. It certainly is a safety thing for not just the residents by that early warning, but in the fire service, if we get that early warning, we can get the fire sooner. It's also safer for us. So it's definitely a push for the city of all of the people who respond and the people that live in Bernalillo County. So we thank you for this opportunity to again get it out in another method. We're going to push it through our social media. We just started a Facebook page to try to engage more of the people that look at social media. So we're going to try and push that as well so that we continue to get those messages out in a timely manner and to those that continue to follow us. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. And fires and structure fires is something is a percentage of the number of calls that you take every year, and the percentages of deaths is on the smaller end of the spectrum. But a large portion of that, as far as safety and prevention, or those deaths, are largely preventable with adequate warning, sprinkler systems, etc. So it's not like a heart attack where you're rendering aid or medical assistance. Nobody can necessarily prevent that. This is something that's absolutely preventable in many ways, and certainly death is preventable, or you can reduce it for the most part in structure fire. So this is a very good thing that you all are doing with education and trying to reduce the number of deaths that can be prevented, and I very much appreciate the department work there. So if you want to come on up, or
you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Pass along our thanks to all of our dedicated fire personnel. Next, moving on to item 5A. Moving on to item 5A, Public Partnership Awards. County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just wanted to read this, to put it into the record, that the Bernalillo County Public Works Division and the Sheriff's Department were recently presented with 3 Public Partnership Awards from the Mid-Region Council of Governments. So I had the privilege of being there, and I have to say I was very proud to see over and over again our staff and Commissioner O'Malley attended to go up and to receive the awards. So that was real neat to be there. So first, the Bernalillo County Criminal Justice Review Commission, the Sheriff's Department recipients So where representatives from all partner agencies in the criminal justice system in Albuquerque worked collaboratively to streamline the criminal justice case process system that reduced the length of time for criminal cases. This resulted in a 45% reduction of the jail population, resulting in a safe environment for jail staff and inmates. The Commission's work also saved Bernalillo County taxpayers tens of millions of dollars over the past 2 years, all without reducing sentences, releasing inmates, or being soft on crime. The second award was for the South Valley Flood Drainage Reduction Project, Phase 2. The Public Works Department was a recipient where Bernalillo County, the Albuquerque Metropolitan Arroyo Flood Control Authority, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, along with APS and the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, worked together to design and build multiple parts of Phase 2 of a project, which included flood control ponds, storm drain diversions, water quality enhancements, a newer soccer field, improved roadway crossings, and the creation of a wildlife habitat in Bernalillo County, Southwest Valley. The third award was the watershed-based MS4 permit, another Public Works award, a watershed-based approach for the regulation of urban storm water runoff, which included the collaborative efforts of Southern Sandoval County Flood Control Authority, the City of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, Sandoval County, and the City of Rio Rancho, Amapca, and the Town of Bernalillo, who assisted one another with a permit compliance, which produced a number of financial benefits. And also, I had the privilege of receiving the award for Commissioner De La Cruz, who received a Public Partnership Award, just to recognize all his efforts in collaborating with others on various projects, just to make the lives of our citizens a lot better. So just want to congratulate Commissioner De La Cruz and all the great work of our Bernalillo County Public Works staff and the Sheriff's Department for their diligent work and for making Bernalillo County shine, and we're very, very proud of our staff.
Congratulations to all county staff. Round of applause, please. If you guys wouldn't mind coming up, appreciate it. Moving on to item 6A, Code of Conduct Appointment, District 5. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the appointment of James Andrews to represent the Commission District 5 Code of Conduct alternate position.
Second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, Public Communications. Julie?
We have 10 signed up tonight. When I call your name, please make your way up to the podium. Desiree Torres, Sylvia Grass, Donald O'Leary.
If your name is called, if you'd please work your way down to the lower part of the auditorium, please.
Sylvia Grass. I'm going to yield my time to Victor. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Victor Martinez, and I work at UNMH as a sterile tech, and I would like to talk about concerns of some employees at the hospital, starting wages.
Can you state your first and last name?
Yeah, Victor Martinez. Thank you. Topic, wages. Average worker at UNMH makes less than our counterparts at other area hospitals and throughout Southwest. UNM/UNMH management tells the frontline workers that there is no money for raises except for added wages for management. We have heard that some got as much as $10,000 to $100,000. Workers pay the same price as those who got increases, bonuses, at-risk pay at the pump, in the grocery store, clothing, and etc., yet receive nothing. At least 2 small rural hospitals whose budgets are as far less than UNMH gave raises to their frontline workers because they understand the importance of these workers. We ask you to remember this. Working families work at UNMH. Please hold them accountable. Thank you.
Desiree Torres, Donald Leda, Lori McIver, John B. Tack.
Hello, my name is Dr. Ava Boswell. I'm a resident physician at the University of New Mexico, and I'm here basically asking for help as a physician. I'm a trainee. I need good training here. I was lucky enough to be able to be raised in this wonderful state, to go to school here, to go to medical school here, and I'm getting my postgraduate training here. And I want to stay here as a physician once I finish my training. I'm asking you as a physician on behalf of all of my colleagues that we need to retain our physicians, our nurses, and our trained staff at the hospital. We need to provide better wages for them. We need to provide education opportunities. We need to take care of our providers in this state so that they stay, so that they can take care of the population of New Mexico. Every physician, every person who chooses to go into medicine, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a nursing student, whether you're a PA, whether you're a tech in the hospital, you care. You go into healthcare because you care. So the only way that we can take care of our state is if you guys help us take care of the people who we work with and take care of us. So I'm asking you for help to retain our physicians and to consider helping us raise the salaries at UNMH. Thank you.
Would you read the names again? If you're not on the list, you need to make sure that you are on the list to speak. And also, you can share your time. That is acceptable, but please note that you're sharing that time. That way we can keep track of the time that's available. Julie?
Desiree Torres, Donald Leda, Tori McIver, John B. Tack.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Lori McIver, and I am a nurse at UNMH. I'm also the president of District 1199, New Mexico. We represent the hospital and healthcare workers in the state of New Mexico. And I'm here to talk to you about the conditions at the hospital. As a nurse, I'm going to tell you we need help. We need to take care of our patients. We need the tools to take care of our patients. We need the staff to take care of our patients. We need not to take care of the CEO so much, but to take care of the patients laying the beds in the hospital. But we want to stand up here and just tell you what the problems are. We'd like to offer some solutions if we can. But one of the things that you need to understand is that you're the elected officials who represent us as tax-paying members of society. And we're asking you to stand up with us and help us deal with a management that is penny wise and pound foolish. We have housekeepers that don't have the supplies they need to clean the rooms. What does that mean? Our infection rates go through the ceiling. Let's deal with the patients and the patient care before we start taking care of management. What we understand is that there are rules in place between the county and hospital in terms of how much access you have to overseeing their budget. We're asking you to fix it. We know that there was a contract signed and maybe one side made out a little better than the other. We're asking you to fix it. You're lawmakers, you can fix things. That's what your job is, to take care of the citizens of this state. The same as my job is to take care of the citizens of this state, just in a little different capacity. So we're asking you to meet with the hospital administration, to meet with us, and to meet amongst yourselves and talk about, this is a public health care crisis. We're watching healthcare providers run out of this state because they aren't being looked after. We need to take care of our providers so that we can take care of the citizens of this state. We are the only trauma one in this state. We need help. Thank you.
John Batak, Tad Naminsky, Marion Sawyer.
I'm John Tack. I'm the president of the Alliance of Sandia Heights Neighborhoods. I'm here to speak on the proposed language change that is requiring 20% vote if you decide that, or if an issue has come before you that has been appealed. The language that's in the proposed language that will be presented to you today has been cleaned up. We're perfectly happy with the cleaned up language. We are not happy with the reduction in the representation in terms of an extraordinary vote. We want it to remain as it is, that all members have to be here to vote, and that is 4, not 3, not 4 out of 4, 4 out of 5. One of the reasons it's been given that this proposal is made is that there are times in which there are deferrals because a commissioner can't be here. Reality of it is this particular issue has now been deferred at least 7 or 8 times before it's now reached this point. We're here, you're here. This proposal appears to be solely for the benefit of staff and the commissioners, not for the benefit of the citizens. If you reduce the number of people, you are reducing the representation of your constituents. That's fundamentally what you're proposing to do, and we're opposed to that. Thank you.
Tad Naminsky, Marion Sawyer. Jim Ogle.
Thank you. My name is Ted Nemiski. Today, I want to speak about one person, which is Mark Chavez. County manager meeting and schedule coordinator, as I understand. This has been already over 1 month. Nothing has been done. I found him to be distrustful, just simply liar, over and over and over. Nothing has been done. What it means to me, it is reflect who is Bernalillo County Manager, Julie Baca. That's right. I'm sorry I have to say it, but that is. Now, as comes to sheriff deputies, especially those old, going back to 1978, still in force, like A.S. Adams and R.L. Shond. The jury is in the district court. They have big issue, attitude, power, control, disrespectful acts. I only work together with one lieutenant of one of them. Now, not also we have problem right here at these chambers, which say sheriff deputies. Well, also been too many killings in Albuquerque by sheriff deputy. Thank you.
Marion Sawyer, Jim Ogle, Marius Segura, Don Schrader.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Marion Sawyer. I'm a retired nurse from UNM. I remember when I first started working there, it was BCMC, Bernalillo County Medical Center, and it was for many years after that. I'm just urging you to, with the millions of dollars this county puts into supporting the hospital, to exert a little bit more control over the management of the hospital if you can. Yes, indeed, we need a new building. There are many, many horror stories I can tell you about how old the building is and how many things need to be fixed in it. But taking care of the workers at the hospital, for example, the erosion of wages by increasing the deductions in health care. Initially, we did not have a deductible. Then it was $3,000, and now it's $5,000. So basically, when people are quote insured healthcare workers at UNM, they're still like out $5,000 if anything significant happens in their family. So that's my request, is with the changes with UNM taking over part of the control, that the commission takes a look at actually looking at changing some of the safety issues and healthcare benefits for the workers at the hospital. Thank you very much.
Jim Ogle, Don Schrader, Delphi Roach.
My name is Jim Ogle. I'm a member of National Alliance on Mental Illness, a family member, and I'm also a member of the Bernalillo County Behavioral Health Commission, or committees, and vice chair on subcommittee for crisis services, and I'm on the steering committee. I just wanted to get up here for a few minutes, or a couple minutes, and tell you that I feel like the processes that are in place are starting to solidify, starting to work. I think you'll see that later on in the meeting today. I encourage you to approve the various proposals that are in front of you so we can start getting some money out in the community and some new services in the community. And I'll mention particularly the community engagement team, which I think is one which will really help decrease the number of people that go into crisis and really be beneficial to both the consumers and the families. And so with that, I'll let you get on.
Commissioner Hart-Stebbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Ogle, for being here tonight. I first want to congratulate you on your being chosen. I know it's a nomination, but your recognition for a Distinguished Public Service Award. Congratulations on that. I know that is a very high honor, well deserved. Over the last many years that we've been working on these behavioral health issues, I don't know that I've ever been in a meeting that you were not in attendance. So I really appreciate your commitment to this, your dedication, your continuing involvement, and just thank you. I know you are just a wonderful representative for families and people living with different behavioral health disorders. You're just a wonderful representative. You bring a lot of information to all of us that we can integrate into the work that we do. So just wanted to recognize you. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would echo those comments, but I also want to thank all of the members of the subcommittee system. And I want to make sure that everybody understands how very important their work is at that level. I mean, they're really guiding what we do. Your ties to the community, your involvement, and your knowledge of the subject matter, and that of all of the participants in the committee is really important to making sure these dollars go where they need to go, and they're effective in their disbursement and in the outcomes. I mean, honestly, we shouldn't be spending dollars if we can't monitor the outcomes. And without your help in that regard, I think we'd be floundering a bit more than it looks like we are. And I know there's from the public perception, we've been collecting this tax for a while, and people are a little bit frustrated over it. But I really believe the structure in the committee system was critical to making sure that the dollars go where they need to go. So thank you again for your service, sir.
You're welcome. And let me point out, you have some very good staff people working on this. So they're the ones really doing a lot of the hard work. Committees are sort of blessing it and helping guide it, but they're the hard workers, and they're doing a good job.
As a member of this committee, sir, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, and we have some of that great stuff here this evening, which we will hear from a little later. Before we go to the next speaker, though, I know that I would like some additional information around the UNM aid issue, wages, and I know Commissioner O'Malley had a couple of questions as well. Commissioner O'Malley?
Thank you, and I don't know who to, we want to, please, thank you. So, clearly we're in negotiations with UNH on the meal levy, the memorandum of understanding. So what prompted you to come here today? Is there some negotiations that are occurring, or what is going on?
So, my name's Lori McIver, and so there are negotiations going on, but aside from that, we understand how the system works. The county rented the hospital the space, and there's a contract. Our issue is when rank and file members are told there's no money and management's running around screaming, the sky is falling, and then we find out that they've given themselves incentives and at-risk wages, which is what they talk about, in the same fiscal year that they're telling the rank and file that, we're 20 million in the hole and there's all this stuff going on. We also understand we're healthcare providers. We're the ones that have been in Santa Fe arguing against the Medicaid shortfall and the need to fix Medicaid, and the fact that we need money in the healthcare system because it's one of the fastest growing sectors in our economy. So let's build it up. Let's not tear it down. And how are you tearing it down? By disrespecting all the people that are standing at the front line. The other problem, the inherent problem that we have, is the way the hospital has built this shield around whether or not they report what they're doing to anybody. Our question becomes, who knows what they're doing exactly? Who has the full picture? We don't think anybody does. We understand the commission has problems with some of the transparency. We certainly don't get the full story. So what we're saying is it's time to put a stop to that and say, if you're going to take public money, you need to be fully accountable to the public from which you take the money. And we believe that is not what is happening. All we want to do is go into the hospital and take care of our patients and take care of the citizens of this state who come to us as the safety net hospital. We want to do it in a clean environment, in an environment where it's well staffed and people are well taken care of. That's all we're asking to do, and that's why we're asking you to help us. We're driving doctors away, we're driving nurses away. We have experience flying to that hospital. And I will tell you, as a nurse, I came out of nursing school, I didn't know anything. It takes a long time. You need mentors in there with you, somebody that's been around the block a time or two too, who can help you when you have issues. And the experience is flying out of there because they can go down the street and get $10 an hour more and actually be respected for what they do. So that's our
Thank
biggest
you.
issue.
And if you want to talk a little bit about, you had mentioned that, and you're saying that there were some raises were given, but they were to top management. So, for example, you would say.
Correct. We understand, and again, because management's so tight-lipped about everything, but people do talk. We understand that middle management, some of middle management, we're looking at getting bonuses in the area of about $10,000. At the same time, they're telling the rank and file there's no money, which is extremely disheartening and unfair, to say the least. Their budget process is unusual, to say the least. Typically, when you go to the table to negotiate with somebody, you go and you negotiate in good faith and you come to an agreement. The other part of the puzzle is that the budget for UNMH is approved and appropriated before we go to the table. So when we go to the table, they already know they're not giving us any money. So our question becomes, how is that good faith negotiating if they've already appropriated the money? And we know by law that they can't come back and ask you for more.
All right, thank you.
Madam County Manager, I would like additional information. Now, you need to understand that we don't have a direct effect in relation to what this discussion is about tonight. However, we do have the bully pulpit, and we are in negotiations around the entire contract. And I think it would be a service to the commission to have more information directly. And frankly, I want to know about those raises too. I think it's important. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree with that. But I also want to temper any kind of enthusiasm along those lines, because even at best, the mill levy only accounts for about 10 to 12% of the annual budget. And I agree with you. The commission and the county for many, many years has ceded all authority over those dollars to UNMH. And frankly, that's an abdication of our fiduciary responsibility to the voters that elected us. And that is one of the central issues of our negotiations with UNM. And in some ways, that should be reassuring. We need to pull that back to commission level, to a county level. Those are dollars we're responsible for. But that wouldn't give us control over the entire UNMH budget. So we'll look into exactly what you're talking about. And just unilaterally, as Commissioner Delacruz mentioned, we don't have the kind of authority to change your wages at this level, but we certainly have the ability to speak with the administration at a higher level.
And we appreciate that. We aren't here for you to fight our fight for us, but what we're saying is that you appear as hamstrung as we are by a management that seems intractable in their position. This is how we're going to do it. And in our opinion, they're forgetting the people at the bedside who actually know what's needed on the front line. And so sometimes you just have to apply what you can where you can. And the other thing is, I don't know if any of you read the Albuquerque Journal this weekend, but apparently they have enough money to create a position for Robert Frank at about $350,000 a year plus benefits. So where did that money come from? We're curious.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Mauricio de Segovia. I am a organizer and staff representative for District 1199 Healthcare and Hospital Workers Union. I would actually, I'm very new to my position, but I want to also speak as a community member. I have great concerns when we have our healthcare workers that are having to struggle and fight to get the recognition and feel valued as workers that provide as much care as they do and compassionate care that they provide to some of the most vulnerable people in our state. And in particular, when it comes to healthcare workers that have to pay so much for their own health care, on top of the fact that when I speak with workers, I hear their concerns and their feelings when they see upper management receiving raises, and they looking back at all of the education, all of the hard work and the struggle, everywhere from housekeeping all the way up to nurses and physicians. It is concerning to me, even as a public health issue, as a community member, where if I were to take my ailing grandmother or my little sister who has a heart condition, I would expect to have the utmost quality care, and I think that comes from feeling valued as an employee in a place with such high stress, with fast-moving parts, with a lot of emotional struggle. So I ask of you all to really look at what's going on when it comes to the funding for UNMH. And I speak not just as a community member, but also on behalf of our workers that I hear their stories every day. Thank you.
Don Schrader, Delphi Roach, Geraldine Amato.
When would it be right for an enemy nation to murder your family? If never, how can it be right for the United States to murder their families? Would I, as an openly gay man, fight to be accepted into the mafia? Would I, as an openly gay man, fight to be accepted into a violent street gang? Would I, as an openly gay man, fight to be accepted into a band of drug dealers or bank robbers? The U.S. military has murdered far more moms, dads, and kids than all the bank robbers, drug dealers, street gangs, and mafia combined. I know of no street gang, no mafia that pays preachers to ease their consciences and to pray with them for God's help to slaughter their enemies. But the U.S. military does. Paid chaplains in uniform. Governments lie. Especially in time of war, all governments lie. King of Prussia, Frederick the Great, said, "If my soldiers were to begin to think, not one of them would remain in the army." Henry David Thoreau said, "It is impossible to give a soldier a good education without making him a deserter. His natural enemy is the government that drills him."
Good evening. My name is Delphi Roach. I'm Executive Director of the New Mexico Brain Injury Alliance, but I'm here representing another program, Families ASAP. I'm here regarding what I read in the paper today about the mental health dollars, and I've been involved in some of the meetings, but not very many. I don't know how they're going to request proposals, but whether or not we can apply for that, the dollars, I want you to know who we are and what we do. We are an organization for families raising children with mental health issues, mental illness, due to whatever reason, brain injury, environmental challenges, an actual diagnosis of mental illness. We help wherever a parent finds themselves, whether it be with school suspensions, expulsions, juvenile justice, psychiatric inpatient, outpatient protective services. The majority of our referrals live here in Bernalillo County, and that's why I'm here. I want to make sure that our families and their children are not a forgotten population or priority. As we're all struggling to know what to do for people living with mental illnesses, we want to make sure that the kids and the families that live here in Bernalillo County also have access to programs, because right now we are struggling to find service for kids. And as you all know, our kids drop out when school's not going well, or they find themselves in and out of hospitals. And then there's the runaways and the shelters, and it's cost a lot more money. We're here to help. Please call on us. I have information about who we are and how to get a hold of us, and be happy to leave it here. Thank you.
Geraldine Amato.
Good evening. The Republic no longer exists. We're under a private commercial jurisdiction. Every program and project is a business enterprise. Our lives are only worth the establishment's bottom line. The good people do not control this nation. Many of the good people that spoke today about the dynamics of healthcare don't control what is happening at UNM or any other institution involved with it. The federal presidential campaign circus that's going on today is a distraction. It has no real significance to reality, because whoever is in the White House neither controls what happens in the federal government, nor is he chosen by the voters. Our ballots are counted in secret with electronic gadgetry, and as James Collier brought out, vote scam, the stealing of America. We will never have honest elections again in this country unless we go to a strict paper ballot counted by hand at every precinct. The one speaker referred to the dynamics disheartening and unfair. It's actually worse than that. It's criminal and it's unlawful, but it's legal under this current order of things, because we're not under the law. We're under a private commercial jurisdiction. The terminology of taxpayers is a deception, because none of us pay taxes by choice. Whatever we earn supposedly with our labor is whatever the establishment wants, they siphon off. It's like if a thief came in your house and stole some money out of your little box in your bedroom or something and went and bought a television set. You did not sponsor the buying of that television set. The thief stole your money and bought that. That's what's happening with the so-called taxpayers. We have nothing whatsoever to say about what is happening. We have the military and police establishment here and the nuclear weapons establishment here. This is a prime place to kick off the armed rebellion that's needed in this country to turn things around. We need to revive the spirit of the American Revolution. That is not treason. That is restoring lawful order. We're not under lawful order. We need to restore lawful order. And I hope there's people of courage and there's some warriors left in this Coast Coast Federal Reservation.
Thank you, Ms.
Willing
Amato.
to change things and turn things around. We've got to stick our necks out and take the risk. Because if we don't, we're going to inherit a genocidal
Thank you, Ms.
regime,
Amato.
and all of us that aren't willing to be yes men will be genocided, period. We see what they are.
Thank you.
They're,
Let the
by their
record,
fruits you will know them.
thank you. Let the record reflect that
President, Chair,
Commissioner
De La
Talbert,
Cruz.
let the record show that Commissioner Talbert is excused this evening. We have a motion to approve the minutes of September 8th, 2016 special administrative meeting. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. A second by Commissioner Johnson, motion by myself. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 8B, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 13th, 2016. We have a motion by myself, a second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner O'Malley. Mr. Clerk, if we could have 3 financial resolutions items, one for item A, two for item A, 1 and 3, and one for B, item 1, and also one for C1 as well.
Item A is FR 2016-67, FR 2016-68. Item B is FR 2016-69, and item C is AR 2016-70.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, economic development. Marcos? Mr. Clerk, if we could have an ordinance number for item 10A.
2016-22.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marcos Gonzalez, the Interim Director of Economic Development for Bernalillo County. Mr. Chairman, the Economic Development staff recommends the approval of the ordinance authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve a project revenue bond application on behalf of La Vida Nueva Housing Limited Partnership in the amount of $18 million. The La Vida Nueva Housing Limited Partnership ordinance approves the issuance of the bonds, as well as the bond documents, indenture, lease agreement, and bond purchasing agreement. I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had asked earlier, and I appreciate you sending me this information, Marcos. I had asked about the exemption periods or the abatement periods for the different projects. I want to know why they're kind of all over the place. For Silver Moon Lodge, it was 41 years, you say. Village at Avalon, 42. Sterling Downtown is proposed 35. And this project is proposed at 30. Why? Typically, you know, the project is, for the exemption, has to do a lot with the building. In about 30 years, usually you have to do a major redevelopment, or things change dramatically in terms of maintenance and that sort of thing. So wear and tear. So you want to explain that?
I'm sure Commissioner Chair Del Cruz and Commissioner O'Malley, I'd like to note for the specifically for this project with La Vida Nueva, they're exempt from property taxes as a nonprofit provides low-income housing, and they've been exempt for property taxes since about 1998. But the other projects, their terms for tax exemption are for the terms that they have to provide low-income housing and for the terms of their financing as well. So it follows those specific terms.
Okay, so what you do is you sort of take up an application at face value. They say this is the abatement term we want based on our financing or whatever, and you're like, there is no like, so there's no criteria there. It's just based on the application.
Commissioner Del Cruz, Commissioner O'Malley, it's based on their request and based on their need to hold that exemption during the term of when they also have keep the project as a workforce housing project. So during that term, they're still having to have the below market rates.
Right. Fortunately, about that time is when the bill starts to fall apart. 30 years typically is why, you know, there's these contracts or these abatements for about 30 years, because usually they have to revisit or they have to, you know. So in having done this before on work with HUD, I guess I'm kind of surprised that it's sort of all over the place. I mean, La Vida Nueva, for example, has a 30-year, and this is a nonprofit, and it's 100% housing, and yet the others, which don't have 100% affordable housing, have higher rates. I think this is one of the things that I think we need to address, that there needs to be consistency in terms of the abatement years. If an applicant wants a longer abatement, longer time for the abatement, then I think they have to justify why they want that longer abatement and bring the pro forma forward to explain why. and that we can make a decision based on that, not just based on their application, because they want it, you know. And we're going to go ahead and continue to provide affordable housing for another 10 years. Anyway, I just wanted to have more consistency around. I appreciate you giving me the information. Thank you.
And Commissioner Chair Del Cruz and Commissioner O'Malley, that's something we can work on with the housing policy, and we can revisit that with you.
So Marcos, I have a question related to this issue. So a developer comes in this case at this particular group, and they want a level of tax abatement. What do they provide you that gives you the information so that you can give them the consideration that then in turn results in basically a recommendation to us? In a nutshell, can you kind of go through that? Because I can't imagine it's simply based on a request.
Chairman De La Cruz, is based on their requests and their application, as well as their application they submit to the State Board of Finance that has their pro formas in it as well, that has the information as to specifically how the tax exemption will provide, be able to make the project feasible.
Commissioners, do we have a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, a second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 10B, ordinance for the Sterling Downtown Facility Apartments. Mr. Clerk, can I have an ordinance number?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? My apology, we have to convene a public hearing for that previous item.
Let us convene a hearing. Who do we have signed up?
Tad Naminsky.
Thank you, but it seems to me already the two different motion was passed. Anyway, why small developer owner won't get tax break? 30 years. This case, $8 million. Yes, rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. That's what one said long time. That's how corrupt that system is. It our politicians are. Yes, they also, as I understand now, not only tax break, but they don't have to pay property taxes. That's true? I think so. Why we all citizens, cities of Albuquerque have to pay, not only Bernalillo County citizens. It is fair to everyone. Those are not your money, commissioners. Those are taxpayers' money. You just can't throw it from left to right. I'm sorry. Time will come. Time is coming. We needed accountability in our governments. Thank you.
Since we got ahead of ourselves, we'll take that vote again. Commissioner Hart-Stebbins?
I move approval.
And a motion by, second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Item B is ordinance 2016-23.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10C, Planning and Development Services. Oh, sorry. No. We're on B. Is that correct, Marcos? Thank you. Don't hesitate to correct. Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, the Economic Development staff recommends approval of the ordinance authorizing the Bernalillo County Commission to approve a project revenue bond application on behalf of Sterling Downtown in the amount of up to $10 million. The Bernalillo Downtown Ordinance approves the issuance of the bonds as well as the bond documents, indenture, lease agreement, and bond purchase agreement. I'll stand for any questions.
No questions. We need to convene a hearing.
Tad Naminsky.
Thank you. I have not much to say. Just added that same thing goes. I also hear, if I hear right 10 million, I consider it 15 million on 10B. But anyway, the same thing goes as I already spoke. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, can we have an ordinance number, please? That was the one that, thank you. Can we have a motion, please?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, second by myself. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now, moving on to item 10C, Planning and Development Services.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Juanita Garcia, and I'm the Zoning Administrator for Bernalillo County. Planning and Development Services Department is recommending changes to the zoning code that pertain to zoning actions pertaining to special use permits, zone map amendments, and conditional uses and variances. So the proposed amendments are in two different parts. We are first proposing to develop some criteria for appeals. So this language will specifically identify who has the opportunity to file the appeal, which would be property owners adjacent to a particular request, or affected neighborhood associations, or anybody who may have a financial interest, or somebody who demonstrates a tangible impact. So anybody who fits that criteria would be allowed to file an appeal. And then once an appeal has been filed, the appellant would then need to clearly articulate the reasons for the appeal. In instances where an error was made in applying an adopted county plan or policy, or a mistake of finding a fact underlying the appealed action was determined, or that decision was arbitrary, capricious, or manifest abuse of discretion. Currently, the zoning code has no criteria for appeals, so we believe this is an important aspect for directing appeals. The other part of the amendments pertains to the 20% rule, which affects only this commission, does not apply to the Planning Commission. It only applies to the Bernalillo County Commission. So what we are proposing here is to clarify the language and identifying how many members are required to be present for an appeal that's that invokes a 20% rule. So the 20% rule applies in instances where 20% or more of the property owners adjacent to a particular site where an action has been, or an application has been made for a zone map amendment or a special use permit, a variance or a conditional use. If more than 20% of the property owners are opposed to a particular action, they can sign a petition, which would then require a higher standard of review or a vote. It's called the extraordinary vote. So currently the zoning code states that if that rule is invoked, we need to have at least 4 members present to hear the appeal, and all 4 need to vote to support the appeal if that's the direction you want to go. So what we are proposing to do is identify if there are 4 members present or if there are 3 members present, what the vote would need to be. We've had some appeals come in where the appeals had to be deferred because we did not have the 4 members present. We want to allow for the opportunity to to have the appeal heard if only 3 members are present. And so we are proposing that specific amendment. We are also proposing the language to clarify just who can appeal or present the 20% rule. The language was kind of confusing. It assumed that the property owner or the applicant would be the one who would invoke the 20% rule, but we are clarifying that language as well. So we believe these actions will help clarify any appeals that are presented in front of you all. We have had these amendments presented in front of the Planning Commission on several occasions. We did have opposition from neighborhood representative. There is a neighborhood representative here today to explain what their opposition was. We are still in favor of the amendments that we're proposing. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of our language, and so that's what we're considering today. I also, do want to mention that there are some minor changes that there were typo errors that need to be made or corrected, and so I'm hoping to go through that real quick. I'm not sure if you'd like to do that now or later on, after.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first one is on page 1 of the ordinance, and so that is on line item 18. I'd like to add the words, but were not present before through no fault of their own. So in this case, we're indicating that persons who were parties or could have been parties at the Planning Commission do have a right to appeal, but were not present through no fault of their own. They should still be
Hold
able
on a
to
second.
appeal.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you go down that road, I'm looking at the uncorrected version, the typos. I know where you're going with this, but procedurally, we got this to vote on today, and you're indicating that there'll be a bunch of amendments that you'll want to make on final action. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, I'm hoping that these amendments get addressed tonight, and the reason why is because we need to advertise this language, and we're hoping to advertise the correct language.
Okay, so we'll need motions on these amendments separate.
I don't think so, because they're not our amendments. I think they're staff amendments. Is that different somehow? Because it seems to me they can just be an entire package.
She can read them into the record, and this is for introduction and publication later. So whatever gets published for the 30-day requirement will reflect whatever changes were, but that doesn't mean that the commission is voting on that change itself. You can change them later. I mean, we have a couple options, but probably in terms of publication, it'd be better for her to read them into the record. So that's what's published to the public.
Mr. Chair, what I was getting at is that we have her read out the amendments, and we just, to be clean on this, if we go ahead and move forward on this, we make a vote on the amendments that staff is recommending as a package and add them for publication. That's it. Okay. And then approve this for publication as we go forward. Then we're clean on what we intend, and that's read into the record.
Thank you. I think if the entire thing is dialogue now, made a matter of record, published put in published form for the public, I think we're okay, because we're not amending individual items. It's amendments to text of a document. So proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Hold on one more second. Madam Attorney?
I think that's okay, because when it comes back again, you'll be voting on the actual ordinance changes.
Thank you. Proceed.
On page 4 of the ordinance, line item number 4, under section 8, the word invoked is missing after is. And then on page 5, line item 9, I'd like to replace the word required with the word invoked. On page 6, line item 13, I'd like to add the word, but were not the words were not present before the word through. And then on line item number 23, I'd like to create a new subsection under letter E and create a new subsection F and have the language read, any person who demonstrates a financial interest or a property right adversely affected by the decision, which right or interest is more than merely nominal or remote. The reason for this change is that subsection E is quite lengthy, and legal recommended that we break this section up into two different parts. And then the last is on page 8, which is on line item 1, adding the word invoke after the word is. And so those are the only changes. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain the difference between the current 20% rule and the proposed language? I know at some point or the other, we could have as few as one, perhaps two property owners invoke a 20% rule that affect a much larger community. That was kind of a problem.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, we're not proposing any changes to that. So you're right. If you have one large property adjacent to another site where they're requesting approval for a planning action, that one large property could be 20% of the area next to it. So it could. We're not making any changes to that percentage. So I'm not sure if that.
Well, and how is it different than what we're doing now?
So really the difference is clarifying the language as to how many commissioners need to be present in order for us to have the appeal heard when the 20% rule is invoked.
Okay. And
then also, really that's the major change, is identifying that.
All right, thank you.
And, I'm sorry, and then indicating that you can have as little as 3 members present for the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, so did you have anybody else?
I don't have anybody else, but I believe there might be somebody here from the neighborhood.
Is there someone here from the neighborhood that would like to speak? Come forward.
I'm John Bitak, president of the Sandia Heights, Alliance of Sandia Heights Neighborhoods. Our primary concern, as I mentioned earlier, public commentary, has to do with reducing the number of commissioners who have to attend and vote. We're fine with the language that's been clarified. We're not fine with reducing the number of elected representatives who are the commissioners who are in attendance and vote. And we're particularly concerned when there is an appeal made by a number of adjacent property owners, and the commissioner who is from that area is not present. So while you will tell me, and you have, and other planning commissioners have told me, you represent the county, but you are elected as well to represent your constituents. And so when you are not here and something is being done in your district, you have abdicated your voice. And we're opposed to that. This really gets to the heart of elected representation. So we believe that the 4 out of 5 is the appropriate number for an extraordinary vote. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's our principal concern.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Bitek, I want to make sure that we're very clear about the roles of commissioners in a land use hearing such as this. We don't get to be elected representatives per se in a policy matter. At the point we're having a hearing, a land use hearing, we're acting in a quasi-judicial mode, and you're aware of this. But the difference is we as commissioners don't get to be elected representatives in a policy matter. We have to apply the law as opposed to create policy. The worst thing we can possibly do in that setting is try and apply a personal opinion of policy into the existing policy. Does that make sense?
That's fine. That's all we're asking you to do.
But where I'm a little concerned about your thinking on this is that you're saying the assumption is that that elected representative is going to rule in your favor.
No.
And that's a hard. I don't want you to hold us to that standard, because that's not how we act, and that's not how we can act in that setting. We have to apply the law, not create.
No, that's not what we're saying. We understand that you are acting in a quasi-judicial manner. However, you've been placed in that role as an elected representative. That's why you got elected, among other things. So it would appear that unless you are making the argument, and I've not heard it made, that you move a quasi-judicial action out of the district as in a court action. So we have court proceedings which move to places wherein there is presumably a neutral environment. I haven't heard that argument be made here. So in this instance, what is happening is that you are placing a property which is being disputed before you in a quasi-judicial manner, in which the people who are making the argument don't have anybody there who's sitting on the quasi-judicial board who in any way has any information other than the fact that it's just between the covers. That's fine. But I've watched this commission in action. I've watched the Planning Commission in action, and it's not just between the covers, contrary to what you say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Busek. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Johnson moved it. I seconded it. Moving on to item 11, adoptions of resolutions. 11A, Parks and Recreation Policy for Certification of Youth Sports Organizations. Mr. Clerk, can we have an administrative resolution, please?
AR 2016-71.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is John Barney, and I am the Planning Manager for Parks and Recreation. And as the staff liaison, one of the staff liaisons to the Bernalillo County Youth Sports Commission, I have the opportunity to present to you for approval the resolution for certification of youth sports organizations that you in Bernalillo County. I also have the honor to present to you members of the Bernalillo County Youth Sports Commission, and to my right is Bob Cleval, who is the chair. Jim Tilley is to my left, who is the vice chair, and Charlotte Rode is here, and she's one of the principal drivers behind this initiative. So I'm going to turn it over to them to present the policy.
Thank you, John. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first of all, Bob Cleval, current chair of the Youth Sports Commission, County's Youth Sports Commission. You know, all of us would like to actually thank the commissioners to allow us to work on behalf of enhancing youth sports and improving youth sports in the community. And you did so by creating the Bernalillo County Youth Sports Commission back roughly about 2 years ago now. And then throughout the fall of 2014, slowly at the commission meetings, the 19 current members of the Bernalillo County Youth Sports Commission were approved and appointed. And we all appreciate the opportunity to work on behalf of our youth. The 19-member commission basically covers all of our major sports: football, soccer, baseball, basketball, golf, wrestling. We have members that represent all sports, the city, the county, APS, medical, business, and each one of you is also appointed somebody that you're familiar with that is involved in youth sports. The three initiatives that we've been working on are with our subcommittees: our Health and Safety Subcommittee, chaired by Dr. UNM Professor Rick Campbell, the Indoor Sports Facility that's chaired by the gentleman behind me, Jim Tilley, and the current chair of the document that you are looking at today, Charlotte Rohde. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to the two of them, since they were the architects of this document that you have, and for any further clarification, questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission. I again wanted to thank you for making this a priority. Our children are very important to us, and the kind of quality of life that we have in Albuquerque is shared with our youth in so many different ways. Charlotte Rohde, sorry, I apologize. With this initiative, the objective was to first and foremost to provide a safe community and to protect our children. And in order to do that, we wanted to facilitate a program that would assist organizations that are currently operating in Bernalillo County and in the city of Albuquerque, as well as those who are going to come into existence in the near future in providing services for our children. And in order to do that, we picked 4 areas where we felt as though it was important to provide those resources. First and foremost, in becoming an entity, becoming a legal entity, and recognizing what the responsibilities are for the people that are involved as far as information that's gathered from the ones that are leading those organizations. The second was to mitigate risk, and that centers a great deal around background checks and making sure that all of the individuals that are within their organization and in close contact with children are getting background checks, and those organizations are taking the results of those checks seriously. Third is to promote health and safety. And again, one of the focal points of that is concussion awareness and education, so that the organizations are providing their coaches and their families, as well as their athletes, the information that they need to make sure that their participation is safe, and that they know the protocols that are available to them should there be an injury. And the fourth one is to encourage education. So we have, I really respect the amount of energy that this commission has put forth on behavioral and mental health. And I think that sometimes when we're working with youth, that the people that are spending the most time with them have not been educated in how to handle children that may have special needs in those areas. They may seem very normal and go about their day pretty average child, but when things occur, those that are in charge of them aren't prepared. And so I think that understanding what normal physical expectations are for children and knowing how to handle things with parents or with the youth as they come up is very important. So those are the 4 main areas that we addressed through this CISPO document. And what we're asking is that you approve us to be able to allow organizations to register as a certified youth sports organization, so that we can help them to cover all of these areas and provide programs that are that are safe and healthy for our communities. And right now, it's not a mandatory certification, but it does give parents and participants the confidence that those organizations have gone through these protocols and best practices, and that there is reason to believe that that program has made the efforts to keep their children safe. So that is what we're asking right now. The cost of this program will be borne primarily by our volunteer organization, our commission. We do ask for some assistance in providing the website details for organizations to access the resources and to submit their information. we stand for questions.
Commissioner Harstens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the individuals who are here from the Youth Sports Commission, as well as all of the 19 individuals who have agreed to serve on that commission to promote youth sports opportunities. You know, it was about 2 years ago that we as a commission voted to create this. We as a county commission voted to create the Youth Sports Commission. And I have to say, it has been remarkable how much work these individuals have put into this effort. Every member of that commission is a leader in the community in terms of youth sports. I know Jim has been a state director for youth soccer. Forgive me if I don't have your title right, but these are all individuals who are familiar with their own individual programs, but have gotten together to make recommendations, as we have asked them to. What do we need to do to make sports opportunities safer and more available to the young people in our community? So this is one of the first recommendations that they have that they've made. I think this is something that, again, responsible people who are active in youth sports support sort of a certification process like this, so that parents have a level of comfort when they sign a child up for some youth sports activity, that they know that that organization and the individuals involved have meet certain standards. You know, and this particular certification requires that an organization state that they have done a screening, they've done a background check, that individuals who have been convicted of certain crimes won't have access to children in their program. They won't allow individuals convicted of these crimes to serve in any capacity where they have access to children. You know, it educates on health and safety. So you know, training about what are the protocols for concussions, for heart attacks, you know, CPR, heat-related illnesses, anti-bullying, and education on topics like what's age appropriate for children at certain development levels, nutrition, physical fitness, as well as code of ethics. You know, what is appropriate behavior both for the children who are participating as well as the leaders and the coaches and the parents. So I think they've done really great work. And again, I want to thank you. I know there have been some members of this commission who just put in untold hours. Maybe some of you can talk about how many hours you've put into this, but I think, again, they have, this is the first recommendation that they've brought to us, and I just want to thank them. I think it's a great idea, and I move approval.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to thank you all for your work as well. I know that you've worked diligently and have put a lot of hours, as Commissioner Hart-Stebbins noted. But just a couple of questions. What does it mean to use the facility? So you have to get certified to use the facility. What does that mean, use the facility? And what facilities are we talking about?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the policy does not state that at this point that we're going to be linking certification to use of facilities. That's going to be a discussion that will be part of our facility use policy, which we'll be bringing forward in November, the beginning of November. At this point, it's a voluntary certification program, as has been described, that will give members of the community some sense of confidence that their coaches have had background checks, that they're and for us, it's going to be something that would be very helpful to us as staff, because knowing that that the organization is certified, it will meet all the basic requirements that we have in some of our contracts, for example. So it would be very helpful to us. And so in the future, one of the things that is in consideration is how would we give preference, or maybe would we actually require the youth organization certification for our facilities? Obviously, we cannot do that for the city or APS or any other organizations, but at this point, in the way the policy is drafted, that is not part of the policy.
So if, let's say as an example, I'm just trying to, because sometimes my fear is unintended consequences. And so let's say a soccer team wants to come and use Debbie Joe. In fact, why don't you come down, Debbie Joe? Wants to use a community center for end of season banquet. Well, that's sports and that's use. I think the definition of use is going to be very, very important because it will potentially create some confusion out in the field for staff.
Commissioner De La Cruz and commissioners, I think that we can address, like John said, we can address that in the facility use policy that we're going to bring forth in November. We are still in the draft stages of that, and we will be socializing that with the commissioners. So I think we can draft that language into that to make sure that we're not excluding. Like I know that we have a group like the Barracuda swim team. They use our community centers for the banquets. So it's a one-time event. So those are things that we can take into consideration.
Well, I would ask you to consider that because, again, you could run into unintended consequences.
Right.
Question, how are we defining sports? And pardon my ignorance if there may be some universal definition and I don't understand it, but how are we defining that?
Definition. Go ahead.
We have Commissioner De La Cruz, Jim Tilly, Vice Chairman of the Sports Commission. I don't think we've addressed a definition of sports. This particular subcommittee had 7 members. I would guess somewhere around 200 years of accumulated experience, and maybe we just assumed that we knew what sports were. I think the typical youth activities that you see involving on the sports page are the ones we're talking about: basketball, track, field, wrestling.
I know that it can be very obvious on some level,
right,
but it'd be not as obvious on another level. So I would encourage you so that when you come back that you perhaps consider that and have a better definition. And lastly, have you given a lot of thought around what certification is going to mean? Because I think that's very, very important. So I don't want to belabor this. I know that you still have work to do, and I applaud your intention with this resolution. I do support it, but I encourage you to work out some of those details because it could become problematic for all of us.
Commissioner De La Cruz, the items that are listed in the resolution or in the document are the requirements for certification that the subcommittee could agree on at this time. Obviously, that will be an evolving document over time, so we hope that the use of facilities would be an evolving concept over time. So I believe the document you have in front of us, of you, is the right now represents our thoughts on required for certification.
Okay, well, I think we probably want to have a second look at this, but I do support the intent. It is, in fact, a resolution. It's not an ordinance or anything of that nature at this time. Commissioner Harsteben?
I'm sorry. Just wanted to add one more thing, is that we did run this, the resolution by legal and risk as well, and they support it, and we'll, just like I said, we'll continue working on it and make it.
Absolutely. I'll talk with them as well. We have a motion by Commissioner Hart-Stebbins. Do we have a second? We have a second by Commissioner O'Malley. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 12, approvals, behavioral health, community engagement teams. Item A, motion to approve the issuance of an RFP for the community engagement team proposal in approximate amount of $1 million per year of the contract.
Thank you. Commissioners, my name is Katrina Hotram. I am the team lead for the Behavioral Health Initiative. Here before you, you've got a set of approvals. These are the first major approvals that we have in terms of the subcommittees and vetting projects. As all of you know, we have gotten these projects really from the CPI report and the City County Task Force. These are issues that we've known about for a very long time, and we have finally vetted them through the subcommittees and through the steering committee process, and bringing them to you today to a little bit a cart before the horse, because we have the ABCGC committee on Thursday, which will be talking about these RFPs, these proposals a little more in depth, but thought we'd take the opportunity to bring them to you today rather than waiting 2 weeks to vet these projects and to move on RFPs. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would seek approval for the issuance of an RFP for the community engagement teams in the approximate amount of $1 million.
Katrina, can you please very briefly dialogue how the committees, the staff arrived at these numbers, and just briefly what that process was? I think that's an important element.
Certainly. Mr. Chair, the way we came up with this first item on the community engagement team, this is actually a new concept for New Mexico. And it's really, the purpose of this is to have peer support teams to engage with the community pre and post crisis who are dealing with
Let me
mental
interrupt
health
for 1
issues.
second. So I'm asking that you speak in general terms to all of the items that we're going to consider, not just that one specifically, because I suspect that they were all done pretty much the same way on some level.
Mr. Chair, yes, they were all pretty much done in the same level. Most of them actually came from the CPI report recommendation. The way we are doing these RFPs are problem-based RFPs where we're just not exactly sure of the amount, and so we took a lot of the recommended amount from CPI report itself. With the exception of youth transitional living services, that looked more like a medically managed model proposal for detox for girls, and we wanted to do more of a social model in terms of youth transitional living, which is why we reduced the amount, because we were uncertain of how many individuals or youth in New Mexico were homeless or precariously housed. So the subcommittees decided to try this as a pilot and to make this more of a social model.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your work on the training, and Greg, appreciate that much, and also the work through the subcommittees. You mentioned we're getting the cart a little bit before the horse here, and that's okay. I mean, there's pressure on all of us to try and get some of this money moved out, but we also want to do that in coordination with our city partners. And so while I'm going to support this tonight, we're going to have our meeting on Thursday with the ABCGC, and if, for example, there are major objections from our city council counterparts, then I would like to bring that back to the commission and bring those, trying to address those objections here at commission level. So it doesn't look like we're doing what we want and then coming back to them for a rubber stamp any more than we want just the committees to go up there. We give them ideas and they rubber stamp them. We want them to be the source of the ideas. We also want them to be engaged in ideas that we have. So it's a free flow, and everybody is truly engaged in this process. And I don't think approving that tonight will change that, but I do want that caveat to know that should there be major objection on Thursday, that we will take another look at and try and address that here at the county level.
And I support this effort because I think it is timely to do the set aside for specific activities. I think we have to move forward. At the end of the day, our work, the ABCGC, and if you read the resolution, it's clear that we are trying to work in unison so that we ultimately have a regional behavioral health initiative. But at the same time, we have an obligation to taxpayers to move this thing forward. I believe that this will help ramp that activity up at the ABCGC. That'll be my hope. Commissioner Hart-Stebbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So clarifying as far as the amount goes, so there are some general targets here. If, say, a proposal goes out, there are lots of responses that seem valuable and valid and worthy of investment, these numbers could change. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, one of the things that, and Commissioner Stebbins, one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight was especially the reduction of adverse childhood experiences, which is something that this commission has been very passionate about and wanting to make it a substantial impact in the lives of children in Bernalillo County. So we put the recommended amount from the subcommittee and the steering committee was actually $1 million. We heard from commissioners who believed that that was probably not going to be enough, especially since we've gone from birth to the age of 18, school age, and that probably needed to be increased. I increased that amount to $2 million in minute track because we had to come up with a number in minute track so that we could vet it financially. This commission could choose tonight to increase that amount or take that amount off.
Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, we're getting a little bit ahead, but I am going to request that we move that number up from $2 to $3 million. But we'll do that just shortly.
Thank you. And so it could be less if there aren't, if the proposals aren't worthy of funding or not deemed worthy of funding, then it could be a little bit less. So that's really a target number. That's what I'm asking.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, I think that we went to max amounts on this. Okay. And so we wouldn't exceed those amounts for pilot projects and what we've proposed to you. And that's why, and I think we're relatively comfortable with the exception of reduction of adverse childhood experiences. So that would be the commission's pleasure tonight.
And so as far as the ABCGC process, so these have gone through the steering committees. Has there been any interest on the part of other local governments, the city, for example, when these come to ABCGC, where they show an interest in actually helping fund some of these programs?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stebbins, yes. And actually, the city is looking at doing something with reduction of adverse childhood experiences as well, but I don't think that the employees are to the point where they vetted that project through their process. In addition to that, we are working on crisis and housing together as joint proposals.
Great. So if the city decides that they're interested in funding some kind of an adverse childhood experiences program, will that go through ABCGC?
That's the intent,
Great.
Mr. Chair.
And I don't know who this question is really, who might best answer this question, but, and this is sort of a general question about ABCGC, not these particular programs, but, the original task that this commission gave to ABCGC was really the process of identifying a governance structure. I mean, our resolution from September of 2015, that was the first thing that we passed on this. It was, and it says to establish, identify a governance structure. Has there been any progress made on that through the ABCGC?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stebbins, I think we were trying to vet some projects first. Now, of course, the temporary governance structure that we came up with was more coordination than a permanent structure, and these are the first products really out of the chute on this coordinating structure that we come up with. I think that the ABCGC still understands that they need to come up with a permanent structure, but at this point I think we're still trying to figure out how projects are running through the committee process finalization and standardization, and then to see really who our partners are at the end of the day.
Great, and I absolutely support your efforts. I think all of the work you've done to prioritize, the setting of goals, the setting of priorities, identifying what outcomes are desired by this funding. So I'm not complaining about that. I just, occasionally that question does come to me, what's the ultimate governance structure going to be? Is there going to be some kind of binding collaborative process? And so I'm always interested in whether that's moving forward in any way, what some of the recommendations might be. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me add a couple of pieces of information that I think dovetail to this conversation. I spoke to City Councilor Clarissa Pena, who is also the chair of the ABCGC last week. And my dialogue with her was regarding that I feel that the city needs to really consider a couple things, because right now much of dialogue has been around the $17 million. And so at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it's about a regional effort. And so I asked Clarissa, Councilor Pena, to have the city staff present to the ABCGC what are they doing regarding behavioral health. And so there will be a presentation this Thursday that will try to define better, because really to this day I'm not really quite sure what all they do, although I know they spend money trying to apply service to behavioral health for individuals. So that presentation will occur on Thursday. Commissioner, I would encourage you to be there because I think it's important to all of us. But it wouldn't be impossible that they could come to this body as well and present. The second item that I requested of the counselor was that they consider finding a way to move closer towards unified expenditures, because right now that's not occurring. And so hopefully we can get there. That's I think our responsibility and our obligation to the taxpayer. But at the end of the day, and I've been very open about this and I've said it in the past, if we cannot bridge our efforts, then we still have an obligation to move forward and provide service. And so that's why I think it's critical that these set-asides, that this funding identification happen this evening. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree. And to address some of the structural issues, I don't think anybody ever believed that this would be, the current structure would be the final structure, but rather an interim structure, because we're not going to just come out of the box with the final solution to everything. We're still feeling our way. We know what we need to do. What we haven't figured out completely is how we need to do it. And sometimes the best way to figure that out is start doing it. And that's the reason we created the governance structure with the subcommittees and the ABCGC and the vetting of proposals the way we did. And that may be something that ends up being the final solution. I don't know. But I do know that we're lacking in regional participation. City and county are working together, but we also need the additional counties around here, Torrance County, Valencia County, certainly Sandoval County, Santa Fe County to a certain extent on board, and Rio Rancho as well. All of that needs to take place because these services that we create will be accessed by their residents, and they have a role to play, and they're going to want to access these services once they're created. So hopefully they will be part of the solution, part of the funding solution, and part of the governance solution of these dollars so that we can really work together.
Commissioners, can we have a motion on 12A for $1 million?
Move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner Hart-Stebbins. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 12B, reduction of adverse childhood experiences project. Right now it is targeted at $2 million. I am requesting that be moved to $3 million.
I move approval, and then we amend it, right?
We have a motion with the amendment. Commissioner Hart-Stebbins. We need a second. Second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to really pleased that this particular item has made it before us. We, as many of you know, we did have a meeting with the ABCG committee and talked a little bit about, given the horrible incidences around child, just horrific situation, child deaths, several as a matter of fact, that we wanted to be able to have a discussion around what needs to happen. We're still under discussions about that, but in addition to this moving forward, I also want to thank our manager, Julie Baca, for just administratively moving some money into the Sheriff's Department for an additional social worker. I think that what we can do to boost the support to increase the safety for children in this community is a good thing. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's very, very important, and I applaud the Commission for its passion in this area. Moving on to item 12C, behavioral health RFP for a behavioral health advisor in the amount of $140,000. Commissioner Hart-Stebbins.
Move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, a second by Commissioner O'Malley. Now, this is for an advisor position, a contract position. Is that correct? This isn't the department head.
You're correct, Mr. Chair. It's for a contractor to help us implement, figure out braided funding, mentor our staff in terms of how to carry out contracts, how to leverage dollars, and how to seek new dollars to move these initiatives.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Paul, did you get those motions? Moving on to item 12B. Again, behavioral health, UNM/ISR contract approval in the amount of $246,553. Ms. Holtram?
Mr. Chair, what this is we've talked about this several times, the importance of data. One of the things that we've done right is to contract with an entity such as UNM-ISR that is helping us to establish not only data parameters for our contracts and for our new projects, but also helping us to do research to make sure that the projects that we're funding are specific and intended in a particular population. They have been on the ground running. This would be a year-long contract. When we start moving on these projects, UNM-ISR will also do an independent evaluation on our providers and on our projects in order to tell us how we're doing, how the money is being spent, and are we having an impact on our targeted population lives of behavioral health.
Ms. Holtram, Mr. Perez, how did we arrive at this number, please?
Mr. Chair, we arrived at it through a proposal from UNM-ISR that had told us what the amount would be based on the scope of services that we wanted.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Johnson moves it.
Second, but I have a question before we vote.
We have a second. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Katrina, the data that is collected by ISR, who owns that data?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stebbins, that's a tricky question, as I found out. Now, if we are asking for the data and it's our provider and our initiative, that's our data. If we are asking, let's just say, for another provider in the community, which UNM-ISR already collects, so for example, that could be DSAP, Healthcare for the Homeless, we don't necessarily have rights or access to that data. We have to have business agreements in order to obtain that data. So it's not just because they have several different data sources doesn't mean we have access to all of that. If it's something that's being developed for us, it is the county data.
And so say there's an outside entity, a nonprofit, a researcher, or somebody who wants to look at the data that has been collected from county sources on behalf of the county through this contract. Will this data be available to anybody? Free of charge?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stebbins, UNM-ISR would have to seek our permission to release any data and the type of data. But yes, we would not charge for that. The thing that we would charge for is if they're asking for UNM-ISR to evaluate that or abstract that in a different way or compare it to another source that they own that we don't have the rights to.
Okay, that makes total sense. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 12E, also behavioral health, youth transitional living. Ms. Holtram.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this is, it's part of the CPI report. CPI actually recommended that we fund a youth transitional living service for females that were going into recovery from substance addictions. The model that they had proposed was a very medically intense model, more like a medical detox or a medically managed detox. When talking to the small task force and talking to members of the commission, we felt it was appropriate to deviate from that and start looking at social models here because the need is great for youth. And with the abuse and neglect that goes on and the fact that we aren't in Bernalillo County capturing well youth that are precariously housed or homeless, we believe that starting programs in the community or developing programs in the community on a social model basis would be more effective for this initial pilot and this initial spend.
Still have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this still focused exclusively on females?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stebbins, no. It is focused on youth who are precariously housed or homeless who have a behavioral health or a mental health need and who require transitional living services.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval.
Thank you. Again, Ms. Holtram, how do we arrive at $650,000?
Mr. Chairman, the original amount in the CPI report was close to $1 million for a 10-bed facility. Since we went to a social model and could not particularly identify that population that needed that service, we lowered the amount because we wanted to do social model programming and pilot it and expand that to youth in transition. So what we felt comfortable with the initial pilot from the subcommittees was reducing the amount so that we were able to build up if we felt like there was more need and more demonstrated need in the community.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. One more question, Commissioner Hart-Stebbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So say there's an individual, an adolescent who has been, who's in recovery, and has been prescribed something like Suboxone or methadone. Would those individuals be welcome into this housing as proposed?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stebbins, that's one of the questions that we will be asking for a response to. So we are absolutely open to medication-assisted treatment. What we want in these transitional living services would be for the provider to provide the access to that medication to and from so that individual could be stabilized, and those are the types of responses that we're looking for that continued stabilization.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hart-Stebbins, a second by Commissioner O'Malley. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Before we move on to item 13, as a point of privilege, I would like to have a brief update on crisis intervention training for staff. If we could have Ms. Chavez come down and do that, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I know that we've done a lot of work. I don't know what is left to do, but I'd like to get an update. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Margarita Chavez is my name. I believe you're referring specifically to mental health first aid training. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Pardon my lack of terminology.
Sure, no problem. So the mental health first aid training has rolled out since the beginning of the year with Bernalillo County Public Safety employees. To date, we've trained just over 400 employees in mental health first aid, public safety curriculum, as well as a number of parks and recreation staff in youth-specific mental health first aid training. In addition to that, we have provided training to the community and are planning to provide a course again to the community free of charge this coming November. Now, in addition to the mental health first aid training that's happened within the county and to county employees, we are looking to bring a proposal to the committees and to the steering committee, ABCGC, and to you all related to teaching and training, which would be mental health first aid and trauma-informed care. I believe Katrina is going to reference that a little more within the discussion. But mental first aid training has been happening. It is happening as a part of the use of force training at MDC. So all of the MDC employees will be receiving the 3-day use of force training, and then the 4th day of their training is mental health first aid. So we are doing our part within the county to provide this teaching and education to our employees so that they're informed to appropriately engage with this population and be able to identify when they are at their limit, and they can reach out to additional resources either within the jail, within EAP, within resources like NMCAL and other resources within the community. So again, teaching and education is something that's important to not only the initiative but the county as a whole.
Ms. Chavez, how are we determining what county employees are receiving training, and what process do we go through to secure approval?
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, what we have done initially that happened kind of by the directive of Mr. Stack at the beginning of the year was to ensure that employees in public safety were able to receive the training, since oftentimes they are on that front line engaging with the behavioral health population. So to that end, there has been requests from Parks and Recreation specifically, and so we have offered courses to Parks and Recreation. In addition to offering courses to individuals from the Parks and Recreation staff have been trained in the T for T, so they themselves can provide training at any time. So say we want to make sure that all of Westside Community Center receives this training, those two employees from within Parks and Recreation can provide that training at any time. Now, at any other department that has interest or inquiry in having their employees receive that training, at any time they're welcome to reach out to myself or Ms. Holtram for a request, and we can make that happen. I believe it was early September that there was another T scheduled, and we did open, I know Mr. Pez did open that up to other departments in case they wanted to send a department representative to the T for T.
And T for T is
the
train the trainer?
Train the trainer. Yes, correct. I'm sorry. So I know that was available, and I believe only Parks and Recreation did take advantage of that. But again, that doesn't restrict any other department from receiving that training. And employees are also welcome to come to those community events to receive as well.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In what department is this training required?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, this training is not required in any department. However, we have kind of taken it upon ourselves to go above and beyond what is required and provide this training to employees. Specifically, again, as I mentioned previously, in public safety initially, since they are oftentimes in that front line, as are Parks and Recreation, as was mentioned earlier within the sports programs. So it was just kind of an extra point, and we advocated for this training to be taught in conjunction with the use of force training at MDC in order to provide additional resources, additional tools in the toolbox for our employees to be able to appropriately engage the public.
Okay, so the use of force training, and there's certainly been a lot of controversy around that. And my understanding is that, at least I hope is correct, that there is a policy in place and that's it's required, and that is being at this point, folks are being trained, or there's been some confusion around that. So then this other training on top of that, why isn't that required for as part of the use of force?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, I do believe that has been something that they have rolled into the use of force training. So I can't speak specifically to requirements per this training at MDC. We did advocate from the beginning that it be included and not left out as a part of the use of force training, and there has been significant feedback from corrections officers saying, well, I never thought about looking at the situation from this perspective, and so we've been getting some really positive feedback. The goal of mental health first aid training from the beginning has been to be sure that all of fire, communications, law, and corrections are able to receive this training or version. Now, the Sheriff's Department has not received mental health first aid, but obviously they do have a significant amount of training that is above and beyond mental health first aid. We do have that's available to them, and they do have representation within their department who are instructors in mental health first aid as well. But to the end, for example, we had fire crews who received the training in the morning and were able on calls in the afternoon to enact immediately the skills that they learned in the training and recognize that those tools are helping to have them appropriately identify and engage not only the behavioral health population, but also with the community and family that is also being surrounded by crisis on a daily basis. And so being able to see that and recognize the need.
Okay, well, I would hope that those who are engaged on the front lines would recognize the need that as many tools as they could have were beneficial to them and safer for not only them, but the folks that they encounter. And it certainly is something that we would want to promote, given some of the situations that we've seen recently. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, if I may also, we have begun working with Sandoval County to provide mental health first training and to let them know how important this resource is as well. So I know you spoke earlier to looking at how a region and a regional approach is rolled out, and that's exactly the first step that we're taking around crisis. And we know there are many levels of training related to crisis and community engagement teams, to CIT, the crisis intervention teams, to any level of training, but mental health first aid is kind of the start. And so we recently, this last week actually, have been working out in Sandoval County to make sure that their fire department is getting up to the same level as well.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez. I know that you were not aware you would be making this presentation. I want to thank you for your knowledge and your ability to articulate this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13A, behavioral health, also a new project proposals to develop for the ABCGC. Ms. Holtram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katrina Hotram again. So this last item is a set of discussion items, and just as we've done before, we've brought these projects to you, these initial projects that we were going to work on, but as you know, our work is done, and we've piloted this first set of projects, which we are almost done with the exception of supportive single site supported housing and another scattered site supportive housing model, which will be coming to you in the near future. So I wanted to briefly talk to you about the things that we wanted to work out next, which we are not exactly sure how these proposals are going to be. We've really got to vet them through the small task force and the subcommittees. But the first is education and training. Just as Mr. Chavez has stated, we've been working on mental health first aid. There are really a handful of us in the department that can do the training, and there is a public outcry for the need for basic mental first training. We get calls all the time from either public providers or just the community at large asking for this type of training. What they did in Arizona, which again is another CI recommendation, is that we roll this out as a massive training approach in order to do two things. One is to educate the public on behavioral health issues, give them the basic one-on-one on training. The second is to educate our providers and start bringing the capacity up to where we think it should be with individuals or entities that we know we're going to contract with. Along with that, we're also looking at an independent website with that piece that has not only mental health first aid, but where you get help, linking that into NMCAL. And those are the projects that we want to be working on next. So we'll be bringing proposals together on that. New data system. So we're at the point now where we've been working with our internal IT in order to coordinate efforts between MDC, Community Connections, and DSAP, because we think that we're sharing a lot of the same clients. And so to have information on these clients to figure out where they're moving and how we can help them best is critical. But we know now that we're starting on these projects that we need to expand this to our community providers as well. So we're really looking at a database system that does two things. One does case management, and the other that collects data, so that we can bring the data in, the information in, track clients if we need to, and appropriate with provider contracts. And it would make things a lot easier for Paul Guerin externally with UNM ISR and internally when we do contract compliance review and monitoring. So we're going to be looking at that system. Adolescent detox services. This was not part of the CPI report, but an urgent need within our community since the Department of Health closed Turquoise Lodge Adolescent Treatment Center. So we have been on the prowl for the best types of detox models, and Commissioner Stebbins has actually led this forefront to figure out what we do with our youth who need inpatient detox and how we work on those transitions. So this is another project we'll be working on vetting. Doesn't mean there'll be inpatient detox, may mean that what we need are case management and linkage services, so we're vetting those issues now so we can develop a proposal. The next thing that we're going to be working on, again, is not part of the CPI report, but is I think a desperate need within our community and within or outside of MDC, which is our re-entry resource center. And we are trying at this point to partner with the University of Mexico Hospital in order to provide these linkages and these services to see what we can leverage from them on their dime or what they can leverage on Medicaid, but that may not work out for us. And we want permission to start moving projects forward on a resource center. It doesn't have to be big right now. It can be very small because we need to really find out what the population needs, what their wants are, and how many are really going to engage and access our service. We think that we could help with solidifying enrollment for Medicaid because we know that the jail and jail staff have worked very hard to do that pre-enrollment. We could actually finish that enrollment on the outside and continue stabilization for many of these clients. The next thing that we want to do are crisis stabilization service. Very broad term. We're in the negotiations, or I'm not, but the county is in negotiations with UNM Hospital on these stabilization and support services. As you know, we have brought a set of proposals on things that we want UNM Hospital to do. But if that stuff doesn't mature, say like crisis respite, we know that that's a service that we would want to develop a proposal for so that clients who are no longer in crisis, have been just stabilized in the hospital, can actually step down, we can catch them, and we can link them to services through a crisis respite program. We don't exactly know what all of the services are, but we know that we're going to need to vet some of these projects within that stabilization service. That could also mean community case management, one that's not attached to housing. And finally, we want to work on school-based prevention initiatives. So we don't want to stop where we have a reduction in adverse childhood experiences, but we also want to move forward on things like additional counseling services potentially in school for individuals who need addiction treatment, who maybe don't want to tell their parents or are repeating a cycle of addiction within their own home. Mom does it, grandma does it, aunt does it, and so it's hard for them to break that cycle. We know there's not enough resources, but we want to start looking at what those resources could be in middle school and high school so that we're stopping the cycle. So those are our next proposed items that we'd want to work on, and I'll stand for questions.
Commissioner Johnson, take over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Stebbins?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So just one other thing, I know there have been discussions about medicine-assisted treatment, maybe doing that at MAT, doing that at MDC. Is that something that that is in development that may eventually come to us?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stebbins, if you're asking about the initiatives that are happening at MATS, I don't know that there's going to be a cost associated with that. We have actually been working on a proposal to either contract with a physician part-time at our facility or have one in-house. What we know today is that people that are coming in, even though there's supposed to be access to more health care and people are covered Medicaid, they're not accessing that service. People are coming in more fragile and sick. And we have got to figure out a way to stabilize and maintain them more than on the social level that we're doing. So we're hoping to keep that in-house unless there is a need to put a proposal together as that resource. But I will communicate that to you. We're hoping to just shift things around to meet the need, be that stabilization support for behavioral health.
And I want to thank you for that. I think, providers recognize that medication-assisted treatment isn't right for everybody, but is a tool in the toolbox that really does help some individuals with substance use disorders, transition to a productive life. And so you know, just the fact that you're looking at that and considering that at Mass is a great step forward. I think, you know, our jail administrators considering that at MDC as well. Again, not necessarily right for everybody, but for some people it could make the difference between recovery and not recovery, life and death sometimes. So thank you for looking into that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Katrina, these are all going to go to the committees, the four committees created at the ABCGC. So this is just a direction. And did any of these ideas come out of those subcommittees, or how are we collecting ideas from the subcommittees?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, most of these are still coming out of the CPI report and or the Behavioral Health Task Force, or the Behavioral Health Task Force between the city and the county. But these also have been ideas generated, like what's next, how are we going to link supportive housing to additional case management or crisis services? Are the people, individuals in crisis or moving through the mobile crisis teams, how are they going to have access to what we're trying to build? And then how are we going to continue to do a step down? And so they're asking these questions that we're relating to link these services, which we think the next things that we're proposing actually is the next step down layer that we'd be able to show the linkages to our priority populations.
Now, we have a lot of expertise and a lot of community engagement on those teams. Are we asking them, what are we missing? I mean, the CPI report we paid for and we certainly need to pay attention to, but I don't think anybody believes that it's the end-all, be-all for behavioral health and programming that's needed in Bernalillo County. The CPI folks were from Arizona. God bless them, but they don't live here. And no matter how many meetings you have, you can't replace the experience and history and knowledge that we have on those teams. So I want to make sure that there's a question. Are we missing anything? Is the report missing anything? What else should we be doing?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, we are absolutely asking those questions. As a matter of fact, one of our newest additions is actually asking a set of questions on our initial proposal. Should the committee consider, let's just take youth transitional living? Should we consider just funding women or girls? Should we consider doing more social model? Should we, asking some of these questions and how are we linking these? How would you like to show that we're linking services from one service to the next? And so, and they're not shy. They're asking a lot of different questions, but we will specifically ask, what are we missing? And what should we really be looking at next? Knowing that $17 million doesn't go a long way, really their insight on how to leverage even some internal providers and internal systems have been invaluable. So we are trying to listen to that. We know that first round was a little scary because we came up with proposals and some of them went, whoa, what, let's not rubber stamp. Let's really figure out how to vet these projects. And they've been very open about what they'd like to see and challenging us on population data and research. So I think we're getting into a good project or good mode for these projects, and I hope it continues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holtram, Ms. Chavez, Perez. Moving on to item 13B. 13B3A. Bernalillo County Comprehensive Plan update. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you, Mr. Gray, for sticking around. It's a long night, not as long as some of the other nights we've had, but long enough. I wanted to bring this forward just to, so that folks know that we are aware of, to some degree anyway, about the comp plan that is moving pretty quick through the city. And I've heard from some of folks who I represent. They are within the city primarily, and they've been sort of frustrated about what this all means in terms of the sector plans and things like that. And unfortunately, what happens with a lot of folks in the community, they're at a disadvantage, especially when a project like this comes down, or the city is promoting a project, name any project, and they feel like, you know, they're either having to play catch up, they're trying to figure out how to understand it. They don't usually have the resources to do it. In this case, there's a lot of language that is being changed on the plan, and it's pretty significant as it relates to sector plans. I think that folks are struggling as to what it all means. So I guess if you could, just your opinion on sort of how that relates to sector plans and the county's role in this plan. And maybe we don't have that big of a role, but we're clearly, our logo and our name is on this big effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman De La Cruz, Commissioner O'Malley. I can certainly speak more to our emphasis has obviously been making sure that as this project rolls out, Bernalillo County has been participating, and we've been keeping an eye and attending all of the meetings that relate to the comprehensive plan update. A couple years ago, we were invited to participate in this project with the city of Albuquerque. However, we were really more interested in doing kind of an update of the comprehensive plan. And what the city of Albuquerque has been doing is really doing a restructuring of their complete, of their development process manual, all of their zoning codes. And in order to lay the groundwork for that, they've kind of also done a major overhaul of the comprehensive plan, which we share with the city of Albuquerque. However, as the county, we work and operate under a different planning framework. So much of the policy, much of the land use policy, the development areas, the centers and corridors, all of those items that were established 10 years ago, 12 years ago, are really just now coming to fruition in Bernalillo County. And I say that because I can point to concrete examples of Bridge Boulevard, North 14, Sleda Boulevard. Some of those things have been on the in the plans for many years. We're now starting to see them come to fruition. We're starting to see new zoning being adopted there, and those areas kind of being catalyzed. With regard to the process, we've been attending all of these hearings, all of these public meetings. There was a hearing so far. It has moved through the Environmental Planning Commission through the city of Albuquerque. The comprehensive plan will be moving forward then to city council or the various committees for review. What I wanted to emphasize, though, is that we have been and have emphasized that the county is very much interested in maintaining the framework that we have in place at this point. We certainly see opportunities for some revisions, but I don't think at this point we have emphasized, or it has been emphasized to us, that a wholesale reworking of all of our planning documents are required. And in many cases, these are documents that are very important to us, relatively new to us, and have been adopted in a different way. A lot of our plans are very similar to each other. That is to say that I think in the city of Albuquerque you have upward of 50 or more different sector plans for different parts of town that were approved in 5 different decades. That's really not the case in the county. All of our plans have been approved relatively recently, probably within a decade. They're all formatted the same way. They all have the same kind of reference points, and many of them are opt-in type zoning that allows individuals and property owners to embrace those types of changes when they feel the time is necessary. Our concern, and part of the concern of a lot of folks on the city side, is that they want to make sure that those sector plans that are adopted in the city, and some adopted in the city and the county, continue to maintain their intent. And that intent is to emphasize the unique characteristics of a particular area, whether it be Martineztown or Doranas or something of that nature. And we've always maintained that part of the importance of those plans is to make sure that those areas are maintained, the attractiveness of those areas are maintained, and plans are put into place that have, whether they're design guidelines or certain types of zoning, that preserve the character. And that has been our emphasis throughout this process, make sure that at least in the areas in the county where we have jurisdiction, that those things stay in place, and we're able to improve on those by putting in certain types of incentives for developers, for economic development, and trying where we can to streamline the development process. Now, our role in the comprehensive plan was merely to work on the comprehensive plan. I'm going to make it very clear that at this point the county is not moving forward with modifying any of our zoning codes, any of our development code, or anything of that nature. We really are trying to follow along and make sure that the comprehensive plan, it moves through the city process, works for county residents, county landowners, and county neighborhoods and communities. So as this moves forward, it may be the case that we have some distinct differences with what the city ultimately adopts and what the county needs. But we want to also, I just want to emphasize that thus far, the plan does recognize that there are distinctions between the city-county process and that the county is really emphasizing that some of those processes that bind the city and the county together, the centers, the corridors, the activity centers, those things remain the same. Moving forward, we anticipate that there'll be hopefully there'll be a lot more discussion as communities start to see and that this plan will move beyond a policy document within the city, and it will turn into a revision of land use code. And my assumption is that when that happens and people start to realize that these changes change what their property is zoned, what their expectations were, what they may be, we may begin to see a little more intense dialogue about how that's going to come about. But our role so far has really been to try to make sure that our policies, our process is intact. And I'll stand for any questions. I know it's kind of a broad topic.
What is the expectation? They've got a plan, it's got our name on it, it's going to go, it's already gone through EPC, it's going to go to the City Council. Are we expected to approve this plan?
Chairman De La Cruz, Commissioner O'Malley, I don't think that we're expected to, I do not think we're expected to approve this plan. I think we're expected to make sure that our interests as a county planning entity are protected. If those things are not identified correctly within the comprehensive plan, I think it's important that we make sure that we communicate to city council, to city staff, that revision may need to be made as we move forward. There's some things that are a concern to me. We want to make sure we have projects. Obviously, we have a planning project in the county that's underway. We don't want to be seen as changing the rules in the middle of the game for those folks. And we have other smaller projects that are underway. And city and county have different needs when it comes to land use planning. Obviously, we're just starting to embark on a lot of economic development in the county, and we want to make sure that continues. We also want to make sure that, and by saying that, we want to make sure that this plan reflects those items that are of critical importance to county interests. If this moves forward and continues to move forward through the city process, I think we should probably have that discussion as it gets closer, so that the Board of County Commissioners can be very clear about what types of proposals are in that plan, and we can be directed as staff to make sure that the wishes of the county and all the districts of the county are carried forward in this comprehensive plan.
Okay, and I just wanted to, I've heard from folks that are primarily in the city that are concerned about this plan. We're in a sort of situation, is kind of a tough situation, actually, where, jurisdictionally we don't make these decisions, but the folks who are concerned about it, they vote for us, and so we want to be responsive to their concerns. And a lot of these folks have worked on sector plans. Sometimes these things take 5 years. There's a huge ownership around them. Rana's plan is one example. The city and the county both had planning staff involved, and we had to move that forward. And just the concern about maintaining a certain cultural identity, et cetera, that's going to be very important for folks. So this plan has just been kind of interesting in that, like, surprised it went through EDC very quickly. It didn't seem to have a lot of pushback. I see from the city's standpoint that they want to have this unified sort of homogenous in some ways code that but there's a concern about that, Albuquerque is diverse and we have different communities, and it's a good thing. So I appreciate you talking with us, and we'll probably be meeting, likely be meeting also with some of the other city folks to discuss this further. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be very brief, Enrico. So we have a Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Comprehensive Plan. To date, doesn't sound like any changes have been made to the county side of that plan or any of the joint areas that we've agreed upon. What's the mechanism there? I think Commissioner O'Malley was getting to this to a certain extent, but me being a process-oriented kind of person, if they make a change to something that's of joint issue or joint interest and previous agreement, wouldn't we then have to approve that change to any document affecting Bernalillo County? And certainly they don't have the unilateral authority to make a change to the comp plan on the county side of this. So am I understanding, it would then have to come to us if it was of mutual interest or a joint corridor, correct?
Chairman De La Cruz, Commissioner Johnson, that's exactly right. Those items that we can see at this point that we share with the city of Albuquerque, those things that are related to the transit system, transportation, centers, corridors. To date, as far as I know, those things have remained intact. We have an understanding that those things are both, they really don't cross jurisdictions in the sense of performance, right? Some of the other things that are really critical, that are specific to the county, such as the land use areas, if you have some experience with the comprehensive plan, you know that there's a developing urban area, the rural area, some of those things. Those are critically important to the county because any changes to those are a de facto change of zone or a downzoning or an upzoning of thousands of acres potentially. And so we've been very clear about trying to identify those items that are very important that they stay intact on the county's end, and if there are going to be changes, we would have to embark on a pretty rigorous process of county meetings with citizens to make those kinds of changes. In short, I'm saying there's parts of this comprehensive plan that are linked to the county zoning code directly, which isn't so much the case in the city of Albuquerque. So we've been kind of really trying to keep an eye on it, making sure that we don't create any real issues for private property owners.
But the city's clear and understands that they got a boundary that they can't cross in the comp plan because their authority doesn't extend beyond their own boundary. I just want to make sure that they're clear on that as well, because we don't want the EPC approving a land use document that affects the county directly, because they don't have the authority to do so and wouldn't hold the force of law anyway.
That's
not
correct.
Without this commission's approval. And we have our own processes and ordinances that we have to go through before, and that could even get to us for approval.
That's correct. Chairman De La Cruz, Commissioner Johnson, in years past, the process was, well, frankly, the county was much smaller, and there was much less at stake, much less going on. This time around, the county is starting to see a lot more activity in all of these corridors that were planned 10 or 12 years ago. We're just now starting to see that come to fruition. So I think that, our staff, Catherine, has attended at least 25 meetings of the city, and we've got other things going on as well to make sure that all of our primary concerns, objectives, and policies remain intact.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, I just want to thank you for your hard work, Madam County Manager. Since Mr. Brady took over the department, it's been in good hands. He's highly responsive anytime that I can speak for the commission, that he's always there to help and answer however he can. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Let me announce this evening that our next meeting will take place on Tuesday, October 4th, 2016. It is a zoning meeting at 4 o'clock p.m. in these chambers. Also, Tuesday, October 11th will be our administrative meeting, which will take place at 5 o'clock p.m. also in these chambers. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.